Forbes Books presents Leading What Matters Most, the podcast that helps you change behaviors, improve performance, and unlock the potential of your people. Here's Phil Geldart.
Welcome back to my conversation with Bob Tweedie. We've been discussing nearly 20 years of experience that he's had building high-impact global leadership and learning programs. So Bob, let's talk about the future of leadership. What do you see the leaders of the future needing, and how do you see future leaders changing?
Yeah, it's a fascinating conversation. We could probably spend hours and hours and hours. You know, there's the birth of generative AI and the disruption that's having on everyone right now. But of course, technology has always been a disruptor. You know, generative AI is it's going to allow us to do things quicker, faster, better, cheaper. But so did the internet. So did the typewriter. And so, yes, it's going to accelerate the way that we work. And as leaders, you know, I don't mean to add to anybody's very, very busy day already. But if you're not keeping up to speed on the latest technologies, if you're not sitting down and talking with peers internally and externally around challenges that you anticipate in the future, how is AI going to impact your role? Then frankly, if you're only reacting to what competitors are doing, then you're already behind the curve. So I think first and foremost is being curious about how generative AI is impacting today, what tools are out there. I just recently took a course on it, and frankly, it wasn't a great course. It was, here's what you could do with generative AI, but it didn't actually tell you how or where to go or the different types of tools that are out there. So I'm still on my own journey there, but I think curiosity is going to be a competency that's massively undervalued today, particularly when you add in, Phil, what you were talking about before about this notion of time and just being busy. We've never been so busy as we are today. It's never going to get any easier because of the onslaught of technology, the fact that we're always on. We can access our emails, we can access the internet, we get emails after hours. That's going to be a challenge. And so we need to figure out a way in order for that technology to be a help, but not a hindrance at the same time.
Do you think that the rise of technology, coming back to the earlier conversation about the various generations that we're leading, is going to be a hindrance or an asset? So, for example, the modern generation is very digitally literate, and the generations a few years ago, not so. So as a leader, do you feel that is going to be an asset or a liability for us as we become more digitally dependent?
Oh, I'm extremely excited about what we will be able to do. If you think about where leaders and individuals add value, it's solving problems. It's being creative. The number one role that a learning leader has is to help the company be successful. Is to solve problems that the company is trying to solve by bridging the gap between what the business strategy is and the talent strategy. It needs to be in order to build knowledge, skills, and abilities. And I think technology will allow us to do things quicker and cheaper, probably better, that allows us to spend more time to do the types of things that technology just cannot do today, which is get in a room, collaborate with others, spend time truly understanding the problem, and then entering into an iterative process in order to get a solution out there that might take, a week or a month, that might have taken a month or even a year in prior years. So productivity is going to go up. I think we need to lean into it in order for us to take over what only humans can do.
So that would imply that going forward, the leaders of the future are going to have to be far more skilled interpersonally. Many of the administrative tasks, the things which we have to do, which take up a lot of time, will be less time consuming, less of a burden, and will be more dependent on our ability to interact with individuals, interact with teams, harness their potential than perhaps we do today. Would that be what you're saying?
Absolutely. If you think about design thinking is a great way to think about the difference between the world of yesteryear and the world today and the world of tomorrow. Design thinking starts with defining the problem. Einstein once said, if you had an hour to solve a problem, you spend 58 minutes defining that problem and 2 minutes solving the problem. What I see a lot of teams doing today and failing, frankly, is because we have to get a response back in 24 hours, because we have to get back to the client right away, the expectation is that there's an instantaneous response. We get a response back out there. We get a solution out there because we want to look to be seen to be productive and responding to problems quickly, but we don't take the time to define the problem in the first place. So step one of design thinking, define the problem. Secondly, which is why I'm also excited about the difference between humans and technology, is this empathy phase. Technology cannot demonstrate empathy, at least not as far as I know, but a human being can demonstrate empathy. And it's not about sympathy. It's truly about empathy. It's walking in somebody else's shoes. It's understanding the world through their lens. It's trying to get more information than you get from maybe one or two initial conversations. And so that's where I truly see us adding value in the future, is define the problem correctly the first time, so we don't have to go back and repeat the process 3 or 4 times. And then once we've defined the problem, we then put in place the right solutions that are tailored to the problem that you spent so long identifying. Then the technology after that will just allow us to get to the solution much more quickly. But if we don't find a problem and understand the solution through the lens of the end user, we're kind of just going through the motions.
I had a friend whose wife was working in a situation where they were handling a lot of customers, and the company trained those customer-facing staff to handle all the processes and procedures brilliantly. So her manager was great at helping her understand the processes and procedures. But she left because the manager really had no idea about how to lead the team, no idea how to lead the people on the team. So I've often thought about that sometimes we think in terms of the leader's job to be managing the things, the circumstances, and the activities, which it clearly is, and sort of take the people side as a given, as opposed to actually that's where the real value is. So as we move into technology, I suspect many of the things which used to be process-driven by a person can be process-driven by technology, which is going to put even greater pressure on those leaders to pay attention to the people side. So unless that is realized, I think the organizations will wake up one day and say, well, we have all the technology, we can do it, but why are our people still disenfranchised? Or why do we have turnover? Why do we not have engagement? Why are we not seeing innovation and initiative coming forward? Because we're doing all the right things, but in fact, the right things are being defined the wrong way. And I feel that if we're charged with helping leaders be great and going back to the idea of releasing human potential, it's about looking at the human being as having great value, as having great worth. How do I get that to be harnessed rather than just get them to do the job? And that's going to be even more critical when that job can be done perhaps through technology.
Yeah, Phil, I think you're spot on. I'll never forget a conversation with a C-suite member that I was conducting a needs analysis, and we had a great conversation about where she wanted to take her business and her function and what the world would look like 3 years from now. And on the business side, it was a fantastic conversation. As soon as I started to go to, well, what knowledge, skills, and abilities are missing in order for you to get there, and how can we collectively design some solutions to build that knowledge, that set of knowledge, skills, and abilities. And we had the hardest conversation I've had in my entire career. And I said, well, think about the types of development that you've had over the course of your career. And she says, Bob, I haven't had any development. What are you talking about? I've only been rewarded for deals. My entire career has been super successful because I'm fantastic at the deal side. I'm great at getting the deals, conducting and then getting the next deal. And so it was very, very difficult for that leader to go to the people side to say, well, that's fine if you're an individual contributor, but what about the people side of your team, and how are you going to get them to get good at deals so that you're developing a successor, you've got a talent management process in place, you've got a succession plan in place. And so that was a much harder conversation. I think, Phil, technology is going to allow us to do what we need to do from a technical standpoint quicker and more easily. But as a people leader, I still think it comes down to the fundamentals. People still turn up every day, want to do their best, but they can't do that in isolation. They need their managers to help. And what managers have to do is set clear expectations, discuss future and current aspirations, provide stretch assignments, ongoing feedback, opportunities to have an effective work-life balance, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot that is standard across management, but it does come down to that one-on-one discussion to tailor it to each and every individual.
So if I'm working for a manager that does do those things well, I think one of the byproducts is trust. I come to trust that manager. They actually, the things that they're saying, they follow through. The things that they hold me accountable for, they follow through. The feedback they give me is honest and straightforward. So when trust is high, the relationship between the leader and the employee is great, and the performance is optimum. So talk to me a little bit about, from your experience, things that you have seen leaders do to build trust beyond doing those basics well. What are some of the things that because I think the better you can do that, as well as pay attention to doing the basics well, the more effective you will be as a leader.
There's some great work done by Meister and others around trust, David Meister. And David Meister talks a lot about orientation, where your orientation is. If your orientation is directed towards yourself, i.e. I'm the manager and I'm only looking out for myself, then that trust is going to be very, very low. He has a whole trust equation. But if your orientation is towards the team and towards the individual, then that's going to allow that trust to be built much more quickly. And if things go well, then the team needs to be the ones that take the credit for it. If things don't go so well, what strong leaders do is that they take the burden or the blame for any problems that have come up. It's very, very hard to build, but it's extremely easy to lose. You can lose it in one sentence. You can lose it in one email, one meeting. That trust that's been built up for weeks and months can go. And I think it comes back to that notion of orientation. Do you have your own best interests in mind, or do you have just your team and those individuals' orientation in mind?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think if I am to build trust with my team, I clearly have to have their interests very high on my radar screen. It can't just be all about me. It's got to be oriented towards them. I think another component of trust is, can I be relied upon? And it's not the obvious things of, yes, I said I would get you the report at 2:00 and I get you the report at 2:00. But it's when a situation occurs where I need help, are you there? Are you willing to step in, or are you going to fault me because I got it wrong? I didn't get it wrong because I deliberately got it wrong. I just made a mistake. But you're there as the leader to help them get it right, to give them the coaching or the guidance. And so, oh, I can trust you as I go through my day to ensure that as much as possible I can be successful. Not to do my work for me, but to be there for me. So I think that a component of trust is recognizing that as a leader, my job is to both be there for you and also to help you be better in your job, to help you grow in your job, so that you become less dependent on me, not because I don't want you dependent on me, but because I would like you to grow. I would like you to flourish. Because I think in those situations, you go home after work and you say to your partner at home, and you say, you know what, that leader is amazing. I really trust them. They were there when I needed them. They're They're doing everything they can to help me be successful. And one of the amazing byproducts of that is that person is then willing to go far above and beyond for the leader. They're willing to do things that they would not normally do. They're willing to actually, what we would call go the extra mile. They have the ability to go the extra mile. Now they have the willingness. And so the leader and the organization get that extra effort, and the individual gets the satisfaction of having achieved it. So I think that that's also a component of being a leader that engenders trust.
I love that. And it triggers the analogy of having your hand just behind somebody's back. You're not actually holding them up, but you're stretching them, you're pushing them. And if they were to fall, they're not going to fall that far, but you're allowing them to fall, because it's in that fall or that failure, which is another topic for another day, but it's within that failure that the biggest lessons occur. But you don't want your team members to fall far enough that you're going into failure that's dangerous for themselves and for the organization. So do you have your hand behind them that are able, and you're able to support them when they're needing you to support them? And it's also, if you don't follow through in your commitments, i.e., it's good to fail, don't worry, I've got your back when you fail, but then you mismanage that failure, that's when you can get into some troubles. That's when you can lose that trust that you've worked so hard to build up.
Yeah, I love that analogy. That's a great analogy. And I think that's an important analogy, because the hand cannot be on the back. You're not doing the work for them. You're enabling them to do it for themselves, but you're stretching them because they feel safe in the doing of it. So that's fairly neat. Okay, let me shift gears for a minute here, Bob. And we're hearing a lot in today's world about diversity, equity, inclusion, about the need for leaders to be mindful of those types of things. And one of the things that I've often felt is that much of that comes back to, do I actually respect you as a human being? Am I demonstrating respect for you, your ethnicity, your language, your culture, your beliefs, your backgrounds? That if a leader actually had respect for another person, they would demonstrate many of the qualities that we're looking for in some of the diversity, equity, and inclusion training that we're encouraging. So what would your point of view on that be?
I think respect is fundamental. It's the foundation that every effective working relationship is built on. I would take that one step further, and I would add in curiosity and vulnerability. Curiosity in the sense of, I'd love to learn how to be able to at least understand everything that you go through, your culture, your beliefs. So on the one hand, you've got the curiosity, always leaning into, well, are there holidays that you're celebrating, and why are you celebrating these holidays, and how does your world differ? The way that you see your world, how does that differ to the way that I see the world? Let's talk about it. So leaning into that curiosity, and then the vulnerability to say, I don't know what that world is like. I've never been a veteran. I don't know what it's like to have been in the military. I don't know what it's like to have your religion, because I just don't share the same religion. So leaning into that vulnerability and combining it with curiosity goes a long, long way to ensuring that you're able to really tap into what diverse teams can truly bring, which is problem solving, difference of opinion, different perspectives, innovation, etc.
When we think about curiosity and vulnerability, which I think are key phrases, how do we encourage leaders for whom that is not a natural approach to adopt those skills, acquire those skills, other than saying, well, this is something that would be worthwhile you thinking about? Do you have any experience in terms of helping them develop capability in those areas?
It's one thing to say to somebody, you need to be curious. It's another to help them realize that they're not being curious enough.
Ooh, that's good. That's true. Yeah.
It's that conscious competency ladder, the unconscious incompetence. You start there. Well, this is a critical part of your role. And like I mentioned at the very start of our conversation, it's setting expectations. Expectations for leadership is, and you don't often see this in a competency model, curiosity. Curiosity. Wow. I don't know if I am curious enough. Well, let's talk about it. Getting from that understanding of I don't know what I don't know. I don't know that I'm not good at this. At least getting them to that phase of conscious incompetence is a valuable step and a major step for many.
Yeah, that's good. And I think it requires the person to actually be willing to ask that question of themselves. So you've got to step one step back from that. Not only am I curious enough, but am I willing to ask the question about my own curiosity and vulnerability? Which, back to the leaders of the future comment, I think those are some things that we're going to be looking for.
And am I willing to put myself into a place of discomfort by allowing people to see that, okay, technically I may be very strong. I may be a strong leader I'm inspiring, I'm great at strategy, I'm good at influence, etc. But when it comes to curiosity and leaning into people that are different to me, that's just not something that I'm good at. And I just wonder how many people are willing to lean into that and to truly be vulnerable, to say to others that that's a constant journey that they're on and that they want to receive feedback on their ability to be curious and to be vulnerable and to lean into all of the benefits that a truly diverse team can bring.
Very neat. I'm going to wrap up here, but I have a thought here, Bob, just to kind of close you. We've been chatting about what I would think many listeners would think are very challenging things for leaders to do, behaviors which are perhaps not normal or they're comfortable with. And they may be thinking, wow, you're talking about leadership from a point of view that I'm not normally familiar with. And I would say that the challenge is whether you choose to be a world-class leader, a truly outstanding leader, in which case many of the things that we have talked about are areas that need attention. Or are you content to be a good leader, an adequate leader, a competent leader, and not explore the things that we've been talking about? But I think the workforce of today are looking for leaders to be what I would call world-class. And many of the things which we are talking about are skills and behaviors which, if you truly aspire to be the kind of leader that actually fully can release human potential, you need to be thinking about. And it moves you as a leader from, yeah, I'm good and I'm effective, to actually I'm the kind of the best leader that person has ever had. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, and it's terrifying for people to even start to think about that, because what if the little voice inside everybody's head that's always there, what if that voice says, well, if we truly go there and people find out that I'm not able to demonstrate the future leadership capabilities that will require me to adopt to be successful in the future, then I'm going to get found out. Will I still be in my role? And if anybody has gone through a leadership 360, using any of the tools out there, a true leadership 360 holds up that mirror to you against a very well-defined competency model and says, here's exactly where you are against these competencies. If you haven't gone through that, and not all leaders are fortunate to be able to go through it, then you're second guessing. You have your intention, which is not as strong or as accurate as the impact that you would receive feedback from through a 360. And then you have what your boss is telling you. You have maybe what your teams are telling you. You have maybe what your loved ones are telling you. But unless you get that full 360 viewpoint against those specific competencies, it's very hard to know where you are versus where you need to be in the future. So I would recommend anybody to go through a 360, as uncomfortable as it may be.
And find a leader that has their hand at your back, which is great. All right, folks, we've been chatting today with Bob Tweedie, and if you would like to connect with him, I'm just going to give you his email right here. It is bob.d.tweedie, TWEEDIE @gmail.com, and I'm sure he would love to hear from you. Thanks very much for joining us.
Thanks, Phil.
And that will do it for this episode of Leading What Matters Most. please make sure to leave a 5-star review on Apple or Spotify, and don't forget to hit subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.
This has been Leading What Matters Most with Phil Geldart. If you want to create a culture that drives performance and develop leaders that inspire and motivate, go to philgeldart.com. Leading What Matters Most is a production of Forbes Books.